Jordan, look now. I think that's a bull shark. They're coming from every direction. As you dash one in front of you, there's another one swooping over your head from behind.
My name's Jordan.
And I'm Nate.
Join us on an adventure as we dive, sail, and explore this big blue planet Earth. We had just begun our latest trip, a diving and driving extravaganza down the whole Florida coast. Our first leg of the trip was a huge success, starting off with a heart-melting day of swimming with manatees. Then we got to meet one of our personal heroes, world-renowned oceanographer, conservationist, and outstanding human being, Sylvia Earle. It was time to begin our journey south towards Jupiter, a beachy little town on the eastern coast of Florida that is famous for encounters with toothy critters of all varieties, from beefy tiger sharks all the way down to baby lemon sharks.
We've got about a 2-hour drive, and I'm going to use that to catch up on a lot of stuff that I've been needing to do that I've been super lazy with. So I'm going to be a productive passenger for once. And it's a super full moon. It's really cool. Check it out. Found ourselves quite the scenic parking lot. We are parked behind the dive shop and behind a bar and a restaurant, which is good because there's a few other regular cars, so I think hopefully we'll blend in. Woo! Yeah, that is the current situation we're working with. Oh yeah, look at our little clamp it rig out here. Got our bags out on the ground while we're setting up the mattress in the middle of the parking lot. Look at this glorious, comfy bed. It's like a hydraulic bed. I'm gonna sleep like a little baby tonight. It's morning. It's like 6:30. Still super dark out. Just getting the car all kind of organized, reorganized. We just gotta pick up our gear at the dive shop right here, and then we drive to the boat, and then we are on our way. But I've got a feeling I'm falling for nobody else but you.
We met up with Josh, our guide for the day and shark feeding extraordinaire. We hopped on the boat and began making the 3-mile journey offshore into waters that were far enough from the coast to skirt Florida's laws against baiting for sharks. I felt conflicting emotions as we prepared for our dive. On the one hand, I felt excitement and wonder, but on the other hand, I felt some healthy skepticism about how the dive would be operated and what effects it may have on the sharks. This was going to be our first ever baited shark dive. I've been avoiding baited dives for quite some time, as I'm always weary of humans disrupting wild animal behavior. But I've heard good things and bad things from both sides of the table, so I thought I'd come and see for myself. We jumped into the murky green water, and every few feet we descended, the water became clearer and clearer.
Alright, we got our first shark of the dive. Let's do this.
We gathered into a group in the sand, and Josh began making noise and cutting up fish, and before long, it was shark pandemonium.
We'll only plan on the phone for a few minutes. and coming in for the bait. They're coming from every direction. As you dash one in front of you, there's another one swooping over your head from behind. This is insane. This was by far one of the coolest dives I've ever done. Somehow, this dive managed to be completely chaotic, yet utterly peaceful at the same time. It just reaffirmed every experience I've had with sharks up until this point, which is that they are the complete opposite of the vicious, man-eating image they've been painted as.
I gotta say, this is absolutely nothing. I've done other sharky dives in my day, but this is just total mayhem down here.
We hit the surface, and it wasn't long before we splashed for dive 2.
Okay, we just dropped down to the bottom. We're about 90 feet below the surface.
And it is super murky. I can barely see my hand in front of my face.
The plan was to have been dropped right on top of a wreck where we would look for sharks. But due to either a surface current or a less than accurate drop by the boat, we ended up in the sand quite a distance away from the wreck. We kicked and kicked our way through the current, surrounded by hungry groupers that were hoping to get a piece of the action. After about 20 minutes of swimming our hearts out, we finally made it to the wreck. Because of the pressure, the deeper you are underwater, the more air you inhale with each breath. Combine that with kicking into a strong current, and it's a recipe for blowing through your tank of air. So almost as soon as we reached the wreck, a few of the divers in the group signaled that they were low on air, and that meant that we would all ascend as a group. The dive was more or less a bust, but that's just part of the sport. You can't overpower or predict the ocean. You simply have to take the good with the bad. We still had one dive left. Because the visibility was so poor, the boat crew decided to go for a Hail Mary and head out super far offshore into water that is hundreds of feet deep, in hopes that we'd find some more favorable conditions. If it worked, we would have an awesome sharky dive, and if not, we would be literally floating in the open ocean with nothing to look at but green murk descending as far as the eye can see.
We've been down for about 30 minutes, just floating in what feels like a weird black and white outer space. It's actually very disorienting. Josh is making lots of noise and cutting up fish trying to attract sharks, but so far we haven't seen anything.
Jordan, look now. I think that's a bull shark.
Look how fast they're moving. What an awesome animal.
I can't believe the size of their massive heads and their short, stubby bodies. I've never seen a bull shark.
Can you hold this? I'm gonna make this a nap zone right up in here.
Is that what the ultimate nap zone looks like?
I thought it would be big.
Ultimate nap zone. Oh man. How you doing?
Ultimate nap zone got moved inside. Just look at it. It's like a little gray out there. Can you see?
Yeah, I'm pretty worked over, man.
I had puked like 15 times today, probably.
Me too.
It was so fun though, but I'm so sleepy.
Yeah, 3 extreme dives in a row. Pretty much wiped us clean. We used to do like 4 dives a day, no problem every day. But yeah, today was.
We're house cats now.
Now it's just a bit rough. Yeah, a little choppy out there and this and that. But we're gonna go meet up with some friends from the boat that we met today. So
We're gonna eat yummy vegetarian treats.
do you think they have anything not vegetarian?
No, I think it's all vegan.
What the fuck? I'm gonna eat our server. Alright, so we may film there, we may not. We'll see what happens.
Hi guys, Jordan's a shark today, just a little shark onesie. We wanted to talk really quick about shark baited dives. This was our first one, and yeah, really our feelings and thoughts on it. We're not professionals on the matter by any means.
We're not scientists.
Yeah, but we'll talk about why we've been avoiding them, and it's just timelines kind of. We had Sylvia Earle with her Hope Spots, and then the next one is baited shark dives. So it's kind of an odd transition, right? So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so baited shark dives is a bit controversial among the diving community, including myself. I've experienced that, as we mentioned in the video, kind of the feeling of, is this right? Are we affecting the shark's behavior? Are we,
associating people with food, like all those things, right?
Yeah, and I've spent quite a bit of time in South Africa, and it's one of the best places in the world to dive with great whites, and you do it in cages, and they bait the sharks in. And I never did it when I was there, despite how cool it sounds. I always kind of had this feeling that it was wrong, and so I never did. And then when we went to Jupiter in Florida, this is a very famous dive that you can do there, and we decided to just see for ourselves what we thought about it.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
It was fun. That was just shark
So
madness.
fun,
Yeah. We've done some pretty sharky things in our day. We've You know, back before we were filming for Drenched and stuff, we've worked for shark operations, and we've definitely been surrounded by schools of hundreds of hammerheads, and you name it. We've seen our fair share of sharks, but this is the first time that I felt like I was in a boxing ring with sharks.
Yeah.
Just getting tossed around, getting bumped into. They could not have cared less for your comfort zone, that's for sure. So, Anna was my first time seeing bull sharks.
Yeah, that was really cool. So after the dive, you know, kind of after the fact, I did a little more research into what scientists say and different conservationists say, and, you know, what are some different opinions on whether or not we should be baiting sharks and diving with them. And there's definitely two sides to every story, and there's definitely two sides to this story. Let's talk about the cons first, because I feel like the cons are pretty obvious, which is that people worry that by feeding sharks that we will teach sharks to associate humans with sharks, and that will increase the likelihood of sharks biting people, which is not only obviously bad for the person, but it's kind of bad for the shark's political image, if you will. Like, every time there's a shark attack, people are afraid of sharks, and they're worried, you know, they think that we should kill them, or that we should be worried about them. So that's the huge negative. And also, people are wondering, like, are we affecting the sharks' migratory patterns? Are we changing their behavior? You know,
like Tiger Beach. I mean, a million people have been down there with those sharks, day in, day out. And finally, just recently, somebody actually finally got bit by a tiger shark. And all those nice, peaceful interactions just get wiped away by one bad incident. People just kind of ignore the fact that, you know, this has been going on just fine. It's like, can you imagine if we were like up there cuddling with bears and every day it was fine, and then finally you wouldn't think of it. Yet sharks have a worse rap than bears, I would say, right? So people just tend to be more fearful of them, a little bit more unknown.
Yeah.
I'll talk about the pros then. Okay, so the pros. A lot of, you know, where you can find mass schools of sharks and just good shark diving tends to be in some communities, and some foreign communities that are finally starting to see that sharks alive and the tourism that they can bring is actually more valuable to their community and their economy than killing them for their shark fins. They're starting to finally see that there's a lot of value in shark tourism. So that's a good pro.
And hundreds of millions of dollars globally is spent on shark dives.
Yeah. So this dive, you know, the lemon shark dive, there was, I'd say, 15 sharks around. Well, every time that somebody comes there and pays money to go see these 15 sharks is worth a lot more than just killing that shark and stealing its fin for one asshole's bowl of soup. So there you go. Any other pros you can think of?
Humans having positive interactions with sharks is also very beneficial to the laws that are made around the world and people's feelings towards sharks. And if you see a shark and you have a wonderful interaction with a shark, you feel a lot more personally compelled to be involved and use your vote, use your spending dollars in ways that are benefiting sharks. Humans kill about 100 million sharks every year. That has just endless, negative effects, not only on the animals themselves, but on the entire kind of food chain and the way that the ocean functions, which ultimately affects humans, because if the ocean dies, then we're all like our life as we know it depends on the ocean. And so by bringing people in the water with sharks, giving them an experience that they maybe would not otherwise be able to have, that, in my opinion, is the largest positive, and why ultimately, like we mentioned before, I'm not a scientist, and I'm not going to claim to be an expert on this topic, but if I had to say my gut feeling about whether or not baited dives are ethical, I would say yes. And I would say it for that reason, which is that
they're helping to change people's images of sharks, which is ultimately, you know, there's a famous Jacques Cousteau quote which says, people protect what they love. And it's a lot easier to love a shark when you have this awesome, wonderful experience underwater with them. So that's my stance, I guess, if I had to choose a stance.
And we hope by showing this that we're bringing this to those that can't see it otherwise with their own eyes. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm gonna kick back to our tiger shark episode on this one. Actually, check that one out, guys. That's Laverne, a famous tiger shark in Kona, which we had a absolutely magical experience with.
Yeah. And at the end screen, there's going to be a little box that has that video that you can click on, and it's personally like my favorite I would say it's my favorite episode that we've ever made. So if you haven't seen it, which a lot of you haven't, then I highly recommend you check it out. It's pretty cool. So
check it out, guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys.
Yep.
It's a pleasure.
Tune in next time as we encounter some of the most strange and beautiful creatures that Florida has to offer. Then we boogie south to the Everglades and make some scaly friends and go for the wild ride of our lives.